What happens when flashing lights suddenly appear at one of the most famous farms in reality television history? When authorities arrive without warning, when construction crews stop what they're doing, and when silence replaces the sound of progress that once filled the air. For decades, Roloff Farms has represented something bigger than land. It has been a symbol of resilience, a symbol of family, a symbol of dreams built through years of hard work, sacrifice, and determination. Fans watched those dreams take shape on Little People, Big World. They watched Matt Roloff transform ordinary land into something extraordinary. They watched a family build memories that would last generations. But now, something feels different. Because recently, fans began noticing changes. Construction activity that once seemed full of promise suddenly slowed. Projects that once represented the future appeared uncertain. And then came the rumors. Rumors that authorities had stepped in. Rumors that construction had been halted. Rumors that raised serious questions about what might be happening behind the scenes. Questions that no one seemed ready to answer. Questions that left fans wondering if everything Matt had worked so hard to build could be facing unexpected obstacles. And at the center of it all are two familiar names: Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. Two people who have spent years planning their future. Two people who have been working toward a vision they believed would secure the legacy of Roloff Farms. But now, fans are asking difficult questions. Could their plans be facing legal challenges? Could decisions made in pursuit of progress now be bringing consequences no one expected? Could the future of Roloff Farms be at risk? Because sometimes, the biggest turning points don't come with warning. Sometimes they arrive suddenly. And sometimes they change everything. Tonight, we're breaking down everything fans have noticed. Everything that has unfolded. And what it could mean for Matt, Caryn, and the future of Roloff Farms itself. Because this story isn't just about construction. It's about legacy. It's about decisions. And it's about what happens when the future you've been building suddenly faces uncertainty. For nearly 2 decades, Little People, Big World has given viewers an intimate look inside the Roloff family's world. It wasn't just a television show. It was a journey that millions of people felt personally connected to. Fans watched Matt Roloff take what was once simple farmland and slowly transform it into something extraordinary. What began as open land became Roloff Farms, a place filled with imagination, creativity, and purpose. Roloff Farms became more than just property. It became a symbol of determination, a symbol of legacy, and most importantly, a symbol of family. It was where Matt and Amy raised their children, where Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob experienced childhood milestones, where birthdays were celebrated, where traditions were formed, and where countless memories were created, both on and off camera. For fans, Roloff Farms wasn't just a filming location. It became part of their lives, too. Viewers watched the farm evolve season after season. They watched the family face challenges, celebrate victories, and navigate the complicated realities of life. Over time, the farm itself became one of the most recognizable parts of the Roloff story. But as the years passed, the foundation of that story began to shift. Family dynamics changed, relationships evolved, and decisions about the future of the farm created emotional tension that fans could see unfolding in real time. What was once a shared dream slowly became something more complicated. Ownership discussions brought difficult conversations. Expectations didn't always align, and the future of Roloff Farms became uncertain in ways no one had expected years earlier. At the center of it all was Matt Roloff, the visionary behind the farm. A man known for his big ideas, his ambitious plans, and his determination to keep building, no matter the obstacles. For Matt, Roloff Farms wasn't just part of his past. It was still very much part of his future. He began focusing on new construction projects, new designs, new plans that represented the next chapter of his life. Fans saw glimpses of these changes, They saw heavy equipment. They saw structural progress. They saw Matt continuing to reshape the property in ways that reflected his evolving vision. It appeared that Matt was moving forward with confidence, moving forward with purpose, and moving forward with a clear idea of what came next. But then, something unexpected happened. The progress that fans had been watching suddenly slowed. Updates became less frequent. Visible construction activity appeared to pause. And questions began to emerge. What caused the sudden change? Was it simply a delay? Or was something more serious happening behind the scenes? For the first time in a long time, the future of Roloff Farms didn't feel as certain as it once did. And fans everywhere began asking the same question. What was really going on? Matt Roloff has never been someone who thinks small. From the very beginning, fans watched him turn open land into something remarkable. What started as a simple property gradually evolved into Roloff Farms, a place filled with creativity, imagination, and purpose. Every structure told a story. Every project reflected Matt's determination to build something lasting, not just for himself, but for his family and the generations that would follow. For Matt, construction was never just about wood, concrete, or design. It was about possibility. Over the years, viewers saw him create pirate ships, castles, bridges, and spaces that captured the attention of thousands of visitors. Roloff Farms became more than a business. It became a symbol, a reflection of Matt's mindset, always looking ahead, always imagining what could come next. And even as life changed, that mindset never disappeared. After the emotional transitions within the Roloff family, including his divorce from Amy and the shifting relationships between family members, Matt faced a reality that looked very different from the one fans had known for years. The farm was no longer just a shared family home. It had become something more complex, something that carried both memories and difficult decisions. But Matt wasn't ready to stop building. In many ways, building was how he moved forward. Fans began noticing signs of a new construction project taking shape on the property. Equipment appeared. Work crews moved in and out. Materials arrived. Slowly, something new was forming. It wasn't just another decorative feature or small addition. This was different. This project felt personal. Those closest to the situation understood that this wasn't simply about expanding the farm. It was about creating a space that reflected Matt's current chapter in life, a chapter defined by independence, change, and redefining what the future would look like. For Matt, this construction represented more than physical progress. It represented emotional progress. After decades of building a life centered around family unity, Matt was now building something that symbolized his own individual journey, a place that aligned with his present reality, a place where he could continue shaping his vision without being tied to the past in the same way. Fans who had followed his story for years understood how meaningful this was. Because Matt had always expressed himself through creation. When life was uncertain, he built. When challenges appeared, he built. When the future felt unclear, he built. Construction wasn't just something he did. It was how he processed change. And this new project quickly became a focal point of curiosity. People began speculating about what exactly Matt was creating. Some believed it was a new home. Others believed it was an upgraded living space designed to reflect his evolving lifestyle. There were also discussions about whether this project represented a permanent shift in how Roloff Farms would function moving forward. But what remained clear was this. Matt was investing deeply into his future. This wasn't a temporary project. It wasn't something small or insignificant. It carried weight, meaning, purpose. And for fans, watching this unfold brought mixed emotions. On one hand, there was admiration. Matt had always demonstrated resilience. He had faced personal and physical challenges throughout his life, yet he continued moving forward. He continued creating. He continued proving that change didn't mean stopping. On the other hand, there was uncertainty. Because major construction projects don't happen without risk. They require permits. They require planning. They require coordination with local authorities. And sometimes, even when everything appears to be moving smoothly, unexpected complications can emerge. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Work continued. Progress was visible. The structure slowly began taking shape. But beneath the surface, questions were beginning to form. Questions that no one outside the immediate situation could fully answer. Because construction isn't just about vision. It's about regulation. It's about approval. It's about ensuring that every step meets specific requirements. And when something interrupts that process, the impact can be immediate. For Matt, this project represented hope. Hope for stability. Hope for continuity. Hope for the future he was actively building. But as fans would soon realize, even the strongest plans can encounter moments of uncertainty. Moments that force everything to pause. Moments that remind everyone that progress is never guaranteed. And sometimes, the very thing meant to symbolize a new beginning can become the center of unexpected attention. Attention that brings questions. Attention that brings concern. Attention that changes everything. At first, the change was subtle. There were fewer updates, fewer behind-the-scenes glimpses, fewer moments of visible progress shared publicly. For years, viewers had grown used to seeing steady movement whenever something new was happening at Roloff Farms. Whether it was a renovation, a seasonal preparation, or a larger construction vision, there was always momentum. There was always activity. There was always a sense that something was being built. But this time, that momentum seemed to fade. Fans began noticing that construction updates became less frequent. What had once been shared with excitement and confidence slowly turned into long stretches of silence. The visible progress that many had been following closely appeared to slow down. At first, it didn't seem unusual. Large projects often face delays. Anyone who has ever built or renovated anything understands that timelines can shift. Weather can interfere. Materials can be delayed. Contractors can run into scheduling conflicts. Permits can take longer than expected. Even something as simple as supply chain disruptions can stall an entire plan. Those explanations made sense. And for a while, fans were patient. But as weeks turned into longer stretches without clear updates, the silence began to feel different. It no longer felt like a typical construction delay. It felt uncertain, unclear, almost guarded. When something that once moved forward confidently suddenly slows down, people notice. Especially when that something is part of a public family legacy that viewers have watched for nearly 2 decades. Questions began spreading quietly at first. Was this just a temporary pause? Had plans changed? Was the project being scaled back? Or was something happening behind the scenes that hadn't been shared? Social media comment sections slowly filled with speculation. Some fans defended the situation, reminding others that large projects require time and patience. Others began wondering if deeper issues were at play. Because Roloff Farms isn't just property. It represents years of hard work. It represents family history. It represents dreams that were talked about openly on television. So when visible progress slows, it doesn't feel small. It feels symbolic. Viewers who had followed every chapter of the farm's evolution started revisiting past interviews and episodes. They remembered conversations about expansion, about legacy, about long-term vision. And now, with updates becoming rare, many were left wondering how that vision was unfolding. Or if it was unfolding at all. The uncertainty wasn't loud. There were no dramatic announcements, no official statements declaring a halt, no public confirmation of major issues. Just silence. And sometimes silence creates more questions than any headline ever could. Fans who lived nearby claimed they hadn't seen the same level of activity they once had. Others pointed out that what used to be regular glimpses of progress had nearly disappeared from social feeds. Still, no clear explanation was given. And that absence of clarity began to shift the tone of the conversation. Because when something that once felt transparent suddenly becomes quiet, it naturally invites speculation. Was this simply a strategic pause, a financial recalculation, a family decision, or just an ordinary delay that had been magnified by public attention? Without answers, viewers were left to interpret the signs themselves. And as the uncertainty grew, so did the feeling that this wasn't just about construction. It felt bigger than that. It felt like another turning point in a story that has never been simple. Roloff Farms has always represented progress, dreams built piece by piece. So when that progress appears to stall, even temporarily, it resonates on a deeper level for those who have watched from the beginning. Because sometimes, it's not the noise that captures attention. It's the sudden, unexpected quiet. For Matt, Roloff Farms has never been just property. It has been his life's work. A vision that started as open land and slowly became something extraordinary. Every path, every structure, every attraction tells a story. Not just of business decisions, but of personal determination. Of someone who refused to let limitations define what was possible. For decades, Matt poured his energy into building something lasting. Something meaningful. Something that would stand long after cameras stopped filming. But when uncertainty appears around something so personal, it doesn't feel like just another challenge. It feels like everything you built is suddenly vulnerable. And that emotional weight can be overwhelming. Because Roloff Farms represents more than income. It represents identity. It represents proof of what Matt accomplished. Fans who have followed his journey for years understand how much this place means to him. They watched him design projects. They watched him oversee construction. They watched him turn ideas into reality. They saw the passion behind every decision. And now, seeing that future surrounded by questions has left many wondering how he is coping emotionally. Because when you spend decades building something, you don't separate yourself from it easily. It becomes part of who you are. Sources close to the situation have suggested that moments like this often force difficult reflection. Reflection about the future. Reflection about priorities. Reflection about what truly matters. Not just financially, but emotionally. Because uncertainty creates pressure. Pressure to make the right decisions. Pressure to protect what exists. Pressure to ensure that everything built over years doesn't disappear unexpectedly. And for Matt, that pressure carries deeper meaning. Roloff Farms was never just a project. It was his legacy. It was something he hoped would continue forward. Something that would remain connected to the family name. Something that would outlive the challenges of any single moment. But uncertainty has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. It forces people to confront possibilities they hoped they would never face. Possibilities of change. Possibilities of loss. Possibilities of letting go. And even when nothing has been decided, the emotional impact is real. Because the fear of losing something meaningful can feel just as heavy as losing it. Fans began paying closer attention to Matt's public presence. His social media activity. His tone. His updates. Looking for clues. Looking for signs of confidence or concern. Sometimes, silence itself becomes part of the story. Because silence leaves room for interpretation. Some fans believe Matt remains focused and determined. That he is someone who has faced challenges before and found ways to move forward. After all, his journey has never been easy. He has overcome personal struggles, business obstacles, family conflicts, and each time he found a way to continue. That resilience has become part of how fans see him. But even the strongest individuals feel the emotional toll of uncertainty. especially when the stakes are so high. Especially when the outcome affects not just business, but legacy. For Matt, Roloff Farms represents decades of memories. Memories of raising his children. Memories of family gatherings. Memories of milestones, both personal and professional. It is where dreams were built, and where those dreams became reality. Facing questions about its future means facing questions about what comes next. And that can be one of the hardest emotional experiences anyone can go through. Because change, even when necessary, is rarely easy. It forces people to redefine their plans, their expectations, their vision for what lies ahead. Fans understand this on a deeply human level, because many people have experienced moments where something meaningful in their lives faced uncertainty. And that shared experience creates empathy. It reminds everyone that behind the television story, there is a real person. Someone with emotions. Someone with fears. Someone trying to protect what matters most. As the situation continues to unfold, one thing remains clear. The emotional weight of uncertainty is real. It cannot be measured in headlines. It cannot be captured fully in updates. It is felt privately, quietly, and deeply. But if Matt's journey has shown anything, it is that he has never been someone who gives up easily. He has faced uncertainty before, and each time he found a way forward. Whether that happens again is something only time will reveal. But one thing is certain. Roloff Farms will always represent more than land. It will always represent a dream that became real. Caryn Chandler has never been just a background figure in Matt Roloff's life. She has been present during some of the most important transitions he has faced. From the moment their relationship became public, Caryn stepped into a world that was already filled with history, emotion, and public attention. She understood that being with Matt also meant becoming part of a story that millions of people had followed for years. And she accepted that reality. Because their relationship was built not just on companionship, but on the idea of building something new together. A future that reflected who they had become, not who they once were. Over time, fans saw Caryn and Matt grow closer. They traveled together. They made plans together. They spoke openly about their hopes. And most importantly, they appeared to share a vision for what their next chapter would look like. For Matt, Roloff Farms had always been more than land. It was a lifelong dream. And Caryn became part of that dream. Not as someone replacing the past, but as someone helping shape the future. She stood beside him as decisions were made, as plans were drawn, as ideas slowly turned into reality. Because building something meaningful takes partnership. It takes trust, and it takes patience. But when unexpected challenges began appearing, everything became more complicated. Because even the strongest plans can be shaken by uncertainty. Fans noticed subtle changes. Moments where things seemed quieter, less certain, less predictable. Not because anything had been confirmed, but because uncertainty has a way of changing everything, even without words. For Caryn, this situation wasn't just about construction or timelines. It was about the future she and Matt had envisioned together. A future that involved stability, security, and the continuation of something deeply important to him. She understood how much Roloff Farms meant to Matt. She had seen the years of work, the sacrifices, the determination, and she knew that any disruption would carry emotional weight. Because when you care about someone, their dreams become your dreams too. Their struggles become your struggles, and their uncertainty becomes your uncertainty. Fans began wondering how Caryn was handling the pressure. Because being part of a public story means facing public speculation. Every change becomes noticed. Every delay becomes discussed. Every unknown becomes a question. And that can create emotional strain. Not because of what is known, but because of what is. Still, Caryn had always shown strength. She had navigated difficult transitions before. She had stepped into a complicated family dynamic. She had faced public opinions. And she had continued moving forward. Quietly, steadily, without needing to explain everything. Because sometimes strength isn't loud. Sometimes strength is simply staying present, remaining supportive, and believing in the future, even when the path forward isn't clear. Matt, too, relied on that support. Because no one builds a new chapter alone. They build it with the people who stand beside them, the people who believe in them, the people who help them keep going when things become uncertain. And Caryn had become one of those people. Their relationship had never been defined by the past. It had always been about moving forward, about creating new memories, new stability, and new meaning. But uncertainty has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. It forces people to adapt, to reflect, to reconsider, not because their vision disappears, but because the path to reaching it changes. Fans understood that whatever was happening behind the scenes, it wasn't just a practical situation. It was personal. It affected real people, real emotions, real futures. Because Roloff Farms wasn't just land to Matt. And it wasn't just part of his life. It was part of Caryn's life too. Part of their shared vision. Part of the chapter they were writing together. And when something threatens that vision, it doesn't just create questions. It creates emotional weight. Moments of reflection. Moments of uncertainty. Moments where the future feels less predictable than before. Still, one thing remained clear. Caryn had not stepped away. She remained present. She remained supportive. She remained part of the journey. Because relationships aren't defined by easy moments. They're defined by how people face difficult ones. Together. And while fans may not know every detail, they could see one truth. This chapter was still being written. And Caryn Chandler remained part of it. Roloff Farms was never just land measured in acres. It was measured in moments. From the very beginning of Little People, Big World, viewers watched as Matt Roloff poured his energy, creativity, and determination into transforming ordinary farmland into something extraordinary. What started as a simple property slowly became a place filled with imagination, castles, pirate ships, bridges, and attractions that symbolized Matt's vision and refusal to accept limitations. Every structure told a story. Every corner held a memory. Fans didn't just see the finished creations, they saw the process, the challenges, the risks, the late nights and long days. They watched as Matt pushed forward despite physical challenges, proving that determination could turn dreams into reality. And over time, Roloff Farms became more than Matt's dream. It became the family's foundation. It was where Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob grew up. Where birthdays were celebrated. Where milestones were marked. Where childhood unfolded in front of millions of viewers. Fans remember the pumpkin seasons most of all. Every fall, Roloff Farms transformed into a destination filled with laughter, families, and excitement. Visitors came from across the country, hopping to experience the place they had seen on television for years. For them, it wasn't just about pumpkins. It was about connection. It was about stepping into a world they felt they knew personally. And that connection made Roloff Farms something rare. It wasn't just a filming location. It wasn't just a business. It was part of people's lives. For Matt, the farm represented decades of work. It represented sacrifice. It represented belief. There were moments when progress was slow, moments when obstacles felt overwhelming. But he continued building, piece by piece, year after year. Because he believed in what it could become. And eventually, it became something even bigger than he imagined. But legacy is complicated. As time passed, the farm became more than a symbol of creativity. It became a symbol of family history. And with that came difficult questions about the future. Who would carry it forward? Who would protect what had been built? And what would Roloff Farms look like in the years to come? These questions didn't just affect Matt. They affected everyone connected to the farm. Fans watched as conversations about ownership and responsibility became emotional. They understood that Roloff Farms wasn't just valuable financially. Its true value couldn't be measured in numbers. Its true value was emotional. It represented a lifetime. And for viewers who had followed the journey from the very beginning, the idea of uncertainty felt deeply personal. Because Roloff Farms had become part of their story too. It was where they watched children grow into adults, where they saw relationships change and evolve, where they witnessed both joy and heartbreak. It stood as a constant, even when everything else changed. That's why any sign of transition, any hint that the future might look different, naturally created strong reactions. Not because people feared change, but because they understood what the farm represented. It wasn't just about land. It was about legacy. For Matt, protecting that legacy has always been important. He has spoken openly about wanting the farm to continue in a way that honors everything it represents. He knows what it took to build it. He knows the sacrifices behind every achievement. And he knows that legacy isn't just about the past. It's about the future. It's about ensuring that what was created continues to have meaning. But legacy doesn't always follow a simple path. Families grow. People change. Priorities shift. And sometimes, preserving a legacy requires difficult decisions. Even so, Roloff Farms remains a symbol of perseverance. It stands as proof that one person's vision can grow into something that touches millions of lives. Its story is still being written. And no matter what the future holds, one thing remains certain. Roloff Farms will always represent more than land. It will represent dreams built through determination, memories created through love, and a legacy that continues to live on. Moments like this rarely arrive with warning. They appear quietly at first. A delay. A pause. A question no one immediately answers. And yet, those moments often become the ones that matter most. For Matt Roloff, the farm has never been just property. It has been his life's work. His vision. A place he spent decades shaping, improving, and protecting. Every project, every structure, every expansion. Each one represented belief in the future. Not just his future, but the future of his family. And now, as construction slows and uncertainty enters the picture, this moment carries emotional weight far beyond the physical changes happening on the land. Because when progress pauses, it creates space for reflection. Reflection on what has been accomplished. Reflection on what still lies ahead. For Caryn Chandler, this chapter represents something deeply personal as well. She has stood beside Matt through years of transformation. Through public scrutiny. Through praise and criticism. She has watched the farm evolve. She has watched Matt pursue new goals. And she has been part of those dreams. The construction project symbolized stability. It symbolized planning for the years ahead. It symbolized permanence. Which is why any interruption, no matter how temporary, naturally raises emotional questions. Not necessarily fear, but awareness. Awareness that the future is never guaranteed. Fans understand this, because they, too, have watched the Roloff story evolve over time. They've watched relationships change. They've watched children grow up and move forward with their own lives. They've watched Matt and Amy transition from partners to separate paths. They've watched new beginnings emerge. Through every chapter, one theme remained consistent. Adaptation. The Roloffs have always adapted. When challenges appeared, they didn't stop. They adjusted. They moved forward. That resilience is part of what made their story resonate with millions of viewers. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was. It was real. It was complicated. It was human. This moment, whatever its ultimate outcome may be, represents another point of transition. Not necessarily an ending, but a checkpoint, a moment to pause and evaluate direction. For Matt, it may represent decisions about legacy, about what role the farm will play in his future, about what he wants to preserve, and what he may eventually choose to release. For Caryn, it represents the shared future they have been building together. A future that includes stability, security, and peace. These decisions are rarely made overnight. They unfold gradually, one step at a time. Fans, meanwhile, remain emotionally invested. Because Roloff Farms is more than a filming location. It is a symbol of persistence, a symbol of family history, a symbol of dreams realized through determination. For many viewers, the farm represents continuity, a reminder that even as life changes, some foundations remain. But this moment also reminds everyone of something deeper. Nothing stays frozen in time. Everything evolves. People evolve. Dreams evolve. Priorities evolve. What mattered most 20 years ago may look different today. And that's not failure. That's growth. Matt has spent much of his life building something meaningful. Not just structures, but memories. Moments shared with family. Moments shared with viewers. Moments that will continue to exist regardless of what happens next. Because legacy is not defined only by physical land. It is defined by impact, by influence, by the lives touched along the way. And that impact remains undeniable. For Caryn, the journey forward is equally significant. She represents a new chapter in Matt's life. A chapter defined not by the past, but by possibility. By what comes next. And while uncertainty may create questions, it also creates opportunity. Opportunity to reassess. Opportunity to strengthen plans. Opportunity to ensure that whatever comes next is built on a solid foundation. Fans continue watching closely. Not out of curiosity alone, but out of connection. Connection to a story they've followed for years. Connection to people they've seen grow, struggle, and persevere. They hope for clarity. They hope for reassurance. They hope to see stability restored. Because stability represents continuity. And continuity represents comfort. But even in uncertainty, one truth remains clear. The Roloff story has never been defined by ease. It has been defined by resilience, by the willingness to face challenges head-on, by the determination to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult the moment may feel. And that is what makes this moment meaningful. Not the pause, not the questions, but the response. Because the future is not defined by the obstacles that appear. It is defined by how those obstacles are faced. And if history has shown anything, it is that Matt Roloff has never stopped building. Not just structures, but a legacy. A legacy that continues. A legacy that evolves. A legacy that endures. The future of Roloff Farms remains an emotional and deeply personal topic for fans who have followed this journey for nearly 2 decades. This isn't just a property. It isn't just a business. It's a place filled with memories. A place where children grew up. Where dreams were built from the ground up. And where millions of viewers felt like part of the family. Matt Roloff has faced uncertainty before. He has faced setbacks. He has faced moments where the future felt unclear. And each time, he found a way to keep going. Not because it was easy, but because the legacy meant too much to walk away from. Through every change, every challenge, and every emotional chapter, one thing has remained constant: his determination. And beside him, Caryn continues to stand as a source of support as they navigate whatever comes next. No one knows exactly what the future holds. But what's certain is this: Roloff Farms has already secured its place in history, not just as land, but as a symbol of perseverance, of family, of growth, and of the courage it takes to move forward, even when the path isn't clear. Because sometimes, the most meaningful chapters aren't the ones without obstacles. They're the ones where people find the strength to continue anyway. The ones where endings become beginnings. And where legacy lives on, no matter what changes come. With that said, thank you for watching. And until next time.